and I have the privilege of introducing Deo Moano from the Deo Moano Consultancy. My name is Hamza Khan. I helped organize this conference, and really privileged and thankful for having everyone here today. So before introducing Deo, I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. One is that we have our exhibitor hall that's a little bit different than last year. It is spread out all throughout the venue hall, so please check out the exhibitors that are in the Portland, South Portland room, the exhibitors that are out here in the hall, and also the exhibitors that are in the Casco Bay Ballroom. For food, another announcement that I just wanted to make is there will be food set up in the hallway and also in the Casco Bay Ballroom, a little bit different than last year. So just wanted to make those two announcements before introducing Deo. So for Deo, he is a nationally recognized speaker, program designer, and a transformational culture change maker whose work focuses on helping organizations maximize their positive impact. Deo is the founder of the Deo Moano Consultancy, which helps businesses, organizations, and educational institutions build authentic relationships and understanding among all of their stakeholders. So really looking forward to hearing from Deo. Please welcome Deo Moano to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the same guy from yesterday. Yes, indeed, I'm not going to make anyone dance this morning. I thought I was supposed to have a handheld, but we'll do this. This would work. So my presentation today, I was supposed to actually have a co-panel with me to talk about immigrant youth, but I'm going to do it in a solo way. So hopefully throughout the presentation, if those who are here that work with immigrant youth in the state of Maine, when we have some breakout session to have some conversation, I would love to get some of your feedback. So I am based in Manchester, New Hampshire. I run a consultant firm. My team and I are we're practitioners in different disciplines. So some of my team members are working in the education space. Some of my team members are in workforce development. Some of my team members are researchers. Some of my team members are creatives around performing arts, music, dance. A lot of our work, we really focus a lot on how do we create that intersection for the groups and organizations that we're working with to really move away from concepts, because a lot of times when we talk about human experience, we tend to focus a lot talking about it in a concept way. And so a lot of our stuff is like getting on the ground level in order to understand the communities that we're working with, to really pinpoint areas that the organizations that are bringing us in to help improve. So in my presentation today, I'm going to be talking about my experience working with immigrant youth and how that translates with your organization when you think about immigrant youth here in Maine. So I've had the privilege to work with a lot of different immigrant youth. So I want to give a little bit of context real quick so we kind of understand how I ended up in this place of working with immigrant youth. I myself was an immigrant youth. I moved to the US in 2000, originally from the Congo, 11 years old, moved to Manchester, New Hampshire, and had to navigate being an immigrant and moving into a place where I didn't speak the language and needed to learn how to speak the language. Was raised by a single mother, 5 children, who had a lot of courage and believed in the possibility of her children to be able to move forward through education. So that's kind of my background and the experiences that I had in a younger age, those who came alongside me from my community that helped me believe that I could achieve my dreams, really made a critical impact. So even at a young age, I believe when I was in middle school, I was doing community work with other new immigrants that were arriving in the Manchester area. And when I went to college, actually in high school, I got super involved with performing arts, where I would do assemblies and speak at middle schools, elementary school, where the predominant audience were new immigrants, students that were in ESOL. And then towards the end of my high school, I joined an organization called Youth with a Mission that did performing arts all over America. So I got a chance every summer to travel to different community, East Side, West Side Philly, East Side, West Side Chicago, Jamaica Plain, Jamaica Queens, Minneapolis, everywhere. And the thing that was unique about that experience, the organization was really drawn to my story. So just really quick, um, I was a refugee where my father was assassinated in the Congo, and the only way for my family to get out of the Congo was by becoming refugees. So when I was traveling with this program here in the States, the organization thought that my story brought a different perspective to some of the communities that they worked with. And a lot of the communities that they worked with were predominantly low socioeconomic. And so me telling my story in those programs kind of created this thing as a high schooler, where I would travel often to speak. And then by the time I got to college, it like became a thing that I did where I would travel and speak. But the thing that's unique about my experience while I was in college, and some of the photos that you're seeing are different organizations and communities that I've worked with all over the country. But the thing that happened when I was in college, there was an organization in Manchester, New Hampshire called Bring It. And what they did is they turned an after-school program they turned a school into an after-school program. So every night it was fourth grade all the way to 12th graders from 8 different schools. They would get bused to that particular school, and then the school will come alive. And most of the students that were in that program, most of them were new immigrants from all over the world, from Nepal, Somalia, Congo, Vietnamese, Dominican Republic, and it almost became like a UN to a certain extent. And the thing that was unique about the environment there was that a lot of the students, some of them didn't really see themselves in their regular school environment. So when they would all come together, it was a safe space for them to just be themselves. And one of the things I realized, every time their teachers or their principals will come visit the program, they would say, "Oh, this is the same student we have in our classroom or at our school. They never speak, they never talk." So I was involved with that program from college until about 4 years ago. So 13 years of my time was involved with that program. And I want to emphasize my involvement with the program um, was not really as an employee to a certain extent, that it was an after school thing that I did or after work thing. So when I was in college, it was something I did in between my classes. And then when I started working professionally, it was something that I did in the evening, so twice a week. So a lot of my experience when it comes to the immigrant youth experience really comes from that 13 years of that, and working with immigrant students from all over the world with so many different moving parts. And the thing that was interesting about those experiences is once I started working professionally, a lot of the stuff that I did in my professional space reflected what I learned from the different communities that I got a chance to work with. So I just wanted to make that context. So what you're seeing here is a picture from a couple of years ago, and it's very much community-based driven. So a lot of the volunteers, some of the local colleges, we got students to do community service, so they would volunteer. And then some teachers from the different local schools, they would volunteer their time to help the students out. The unique part about what we did was we had a homework program, we had a career development program, we used dance, we used soccer. You know, in the winter, there's really no place for some of this youth to play sports, especially if socioeconomic is an issue. So we created an indoor soccer program. So those attractions continue to allow a lot of the students to actually come to the program. We provided meals at every program, buses, because accessibility. I don't know about how it is here in Maine, but most of the time, if you're running a program, there's no reliable transportation. It limits the amount of kids that can actually attend. So I want to show this is a career program that we ran for high school students for many years. In my workshop, we do a lot of visioning, so future thinking, and through poster board where, students will cut different images to represent who they want to be in the future in order to make it more tangible for them. And then the picture on top is the dance program. So the dance program is actually really interesting. We convert a cafeteria into a dance studio. And the thing that's interesting about it is we have fourth graders all the way to 12th graders. So again, just think about that from an age difference, right? And we learned a lot of how to manage an environment like that. And the thing that was really cool about the way that we approached it was a lot of times the students would recommend us what music they're listening to. So one night it might be a Bollywood, another night it might be reggae, another night might be Afrobeat. Again, relevance, making sure that the experience that we're creating for the students is not just what we think is best, but it's also what they're looking forward to. So I'm gonna share a little video that kind of gives you some context here of what the experience with this program has been like. Can you start it from one, like from the beginning, please? Thank you. That come to bring it, they have a hard time fully integrating into their schools. Their schools do a great job of serving them, but the relationship side of things in terms of them, connecting and building relationships with native students, so students that have been raised here, that have lived here for a long time, it doesn't really happen all the time because a lot of our students, they end up staying in EL classes a lot when they first resettle. So that's English as a second language classes. And then once they get out of them, they're still, for the most part, still in their, more in their social circle. And sometimes those social circles does not really fully allow them to learn about what's happening in the community or what's happening within their relationships, right? Like beyond just their friends. Some of our students are super engaged in extra curriculum activity like playing soccer, student council. So sometimes that's how they're exposed to more of the native students and they get to build relationship that way. But what I find from our students is a lot of their experiences is still very much limited from the native students. So we would definitely like to see more opportunities that are created in the schools for students to learn about the new students that are resettling in Manchester. We're good. And then the other way around. So the reason why I wanted to share the video, I wanted to just some of the background. It gives you a chance to kind of see the background of what the environment is like. So I wanted to share this video real quick. This image here. So this is Samuel and Jacob. I met them at the program when they were, I believe, in fourth grade, and I saw them from being in elementary school all the way through high school, college. And so I wanted to tell you this story real quick, especially when we think about it from a workforce standpoint. So at the program, they excelled in soccer tremendously, and they were involved with our dance program. And by the time they got to high school, they were phenomenal soccer players. They ended up going to a local college called Keene State College. But when they went there, they didn't really know what to major in other than the opportunity to play soccer at a collegiate level. One of the things that happened that was really interesting through those experiences, the soccer coach identified that there was a safety program where you learn about safety in a workforce space, like in construction. And he thought, hey, this is going to always be a booming industry. I wonder if Samuel and Jacob would be interested in this. Somehow he convinced them. to major in that. And the thing that's really interesting about that experience for them, they excel in that program. By the time they were sophomores in college, they started interning for fairly large company in the summer. Again, a lot of time when we think about higher education, sometimes we have a very linear way of thinking about it. You know, either you're going for business or you're going for, or, you know, there's the engineer and the doctors. But sometimes we don't really think about occupations within our community or that are booming, right? And this soccer coach really sought out this opportunity for them, and they were able to excel. And today, Samuel, so that was me with them. Again, I've had different hair throughout my, I actually had dreads and I just cut it 2 days ago. Anyways, I'm still crying about it. But so so the next picture is oh, I'm going next. Yes, so that's actually Jacob today. He sent me that picture from 2 days ago. He's working for a construction company out in Boston, and he's a manager of a construction site. And the thing about this occupation, most of the time you start off with six-figure jobs. So in the last 5 years, a lot of the immigrant students that have gone to Keene State College, they've ended up majoring in occupation safety. And they're getting internships literally by sophomore year that's well paid. And by the time they graduate, they have multiple job offers. So I wanted to tell you this story because I think when you think about it from a workforce standpoint, this is two young gentlemen that I've known since they were little that came from really hard experiences of their family escaping war, moving to the States, and struggling socioeconomically. But the community, how the community came alongside them through their extracurriculum stuff like soccer, they're able to excel to go to a college. And then after even going to a college, not knowing what to major in, a soccer coach being intentional and saying, hey, I think this occupation safety could be a thing for you. Now, in a lot of the youth that I know in Manchester that have gone through our program, a lot of them are going to Keene State College majoring in that occupation safety. I even know some that went to college for something else and they're entering this field now. So I just wanted to give you that perspective. I think it's important when you think about the immigrant youth in your community here. How do you come alongside? And again, the Bring It program, that's a very long commitment of them, the program staying along with the students and being able to see them on the other side. I have worked with thousands of students over the 13 years that I've been at Bring It, and they've all had different experiences. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've learned through that, through their experiences. All right, so the next thing I feel very confined being in front of the podium because I usually move around, as you all know from yesterday. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit, I think this is 2019. So in my professional life, I've had a lot of opportunity to work for different organizations. I work for a workforce competency-based program for about 5 years. That's actually where I learned a lot about workforce experiences. Some of the clients that I worked with were McDonald's, the city of Memphis, Panera, UPS. So my job at that particular university was figuring out how do you help blue collar workers be able to achieve their college degree. So I learned a lot designing program at my full-time job. So I started creating program that gave opportunity to youth in my community, especially immigrant youth. So we created a program called Introduction to Tech Career. So the whole concept was we were looking at so where I live in Manchester, there's a lot of different tech companies. And I was like, you know, not every single tech job requires someone to be a developer. That, you know, you can be a project manager, you could be a graphic designer, you could be someone who writes the copy of the script. So I said, I wonder if we create a program where we introduce the kids to the different occupations within tech career, would that spark their interest to want to enter some of these fields? So in this introduction to career tech, what we did was every session, we brought in subject matter experts in the community that did different things in the tech space. And I was also intentional to make sure that the people that I brought in represented the students that we had in the program. So, which was really hard because sometimes you don't have that full representation. So in this video, this is introduction to coding, front end coding. So it taught the students JavaScript. And then in the other video I'm going to share, they were learning UX and UI. So the teacher is actually my two colleagues, my friends that I grew up with them. They're both from Vietnam when I first moved to the state. They run their own tech company. And the students that are in this program are from all over the world. Like we have students from India, Nepal, Somalia, Dominican Republic. So I'm going to share this video just to give you a little bit of, to give you some perspective of how this program went. Go ahead. Can you turn it up a little bit?
And then save that.
Control S again.
Oh, refresh it. The code was a lot longer. So this is a standard setup for HTML. It would go with doc type. So the top identify what language that is being used. So it would be HTML. I mean, most of you would actually pick this up pretty easy. So every HTML has a header and then they'll have a body. The body, that's where all your content goes. But only in HTML code that you have to have, you open and then you close. So title stand for actually title, and head stand for like the head of the website.
Refresh.
And if that's what you want, then you go back to your original code, change it out, and then reopen it, and you see that change. But now you.
So the thing that's interesting is a lot of times when we think about tech, engineer, sometimes language barrier or even a student's accent might be the thing that a teacher or a coordinator might say, oh, no, we don't want, the students are not going to excel in that, right? Those immigrant students, they're not ready yet because they still have an accent. So as you can tell, in this program, by the way, the program was being run in the evening, right? This was like, I think it was like 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock. And we ran the program actually at my office. And the students just ate it up, as you can tell. I mean, I hope you see in the video. Like, and the other thing is we didn't want to just show them. We wanted them to be like actually learn how to do the stuff. So they created their own website. They uploaded their pictures. So I think it's really important when we think about how we come along our immigrant youth, it's really important to think about, first of all, their interest, but then how do you present it in a way that it creates a possibility for them to get excited about what it could be, right? So for us, we spend a lot of time asking, what are you interested in? What do you do for fun? And a lot of times the youth that we were working with were very digitally native. So they using Instagram, using TikTok, using Snapchat. And so we were able to use that as a reference to say, hey, you're on the consumer side, but do you know how it works in the back end, right? So a program like this, if I would have brought it into the school system, I will guarantee you 100% that they would have filtered the students that they thought were the best students to learn how to code. And probably it wouldn't have never been some of the immigrant students that we intentionally reached out for this program, right? So I just want to give you that context because sometimes in our education space, we have a tendency of putting people in the box. Because of the grading system, we worry so much about, well, what happens if if we give that student the opportunity and they end up failing and their grades doesn't look good, then it's not going to look good for us, versus just creating opportunity for students to just explore what's out there and the possibility for them to excel. All right, so the next video I'm going to share is the students were learning UX and UI. So there's a local company called Civil Tech in New Hampshire that I reached out to and I said, hey, you all are like the expert around UX, UI, websiting, all that. Can you come? Can I get 2 people from your company to come and do a training, teach the students on the back end? So in this video, there's a mock-up event website to buy a ticket. And one of it is way off, the other one is close. So the students were given the task to review to see if the goal was for someone to go and buy a ticket, is the UI and the UX of the actual screen leading people to actually buy the ticket. So check it out.
that says anything about, you know. Actually, it's here, but it's like think about it, like, in the bottom. Yeah, it's on the bottom. Take it like 20. Right, it's like, that's like the first thing you wanna see, like, right, once you get to the page. Right. So I think.
This is different, right? This is not like your typical, this is not in a.
And we always had to
This is
serve
not-
food,
Most of the time, organizations that I work with, usually like. I work
culturally
with
appropriate food. That was some
businesses and
Dominican food from a
nonprofits
restaurant
that are
near
trying to
us.
start stuff. And I bring them here in this space to work with me. But I thought it'd be cool to host a program here because it takes you guys out of like the classroom feeling, right?
About my story is, one, I didn't speak any English. Two, I didn't have any experience on tech at all. And I didn't have to spend money going to college for me to end up where I am right now. So there are opportunities out there as long as you seek them.
And what we did here is we added a little tab here on the side that will sit on the browser and say, hey, 4 passes are on sale now. That wasn't there on number 1. Yes, yes. This one here, tickets up here. Yep, you saw that? Yep, so we really started to kind of bring the tickets into the effects here because they're pretty much the number 1 thing. And what could be number 2 and 3?
So,
People being happy.
that,
Oh,
that is a good one. We did, that was done on purpose. The use of that image
Thank you.
versus the
So one thing I want to highlight, some of the they've only been in the state for a year. Okay, so I just want to give that context because I feel like sometimes folks think about learning and education based on language competency, especially English, because that's how we operate here. But you can learn and engage in so many different languages because the rest of the world doesn't just speak English. So I hope as I'm grounding you in some of these examples, it helps you to think about within your organization, within your community, how you think about immigrant youth. The possibility is endless. It's endless. And in the immigrant youth, when you think about your workforce, you shouldn't think about them later on. Oh, after they graduate or eventually, you got to think about them now, especially if their family are rooted here. The investment that you make now will help them to identify what this community has to offer and how they can be invested here. Because essentially, if you don't invest in them, they're going to leave your state and someone else will benefit from them. It's where you're in a state where you need a workforce. Your companies and your organization should have a strategy in place of how you integrate and you build opportunity working with immigrant youth today. You can start at a middle school level. You can start at a high school level. There's plenty of opportunity at a community college level, plenty of opportunity beyond. And even if they're not in college, right? And the thing is, I want to help you think about workforce outside of just where the connection lies through, an education space. You can think about them from building relationship with faith groups, community center. I'm sure there's many immigrant community here that already have their community where they meet and interact and engage on a consistent basis. Get into those circles and figuring out how you can build those relationships and figuring out what opportunities you can create. Because that's the way that you build a consistency in a more sustainable way to fulfill your workforce need. It's not when you're putting it up on Indeed and you're looking for an employee. It's about what you're doing right now to cultivate the workforce that you need. And you have an amazing opportunity with all the immigrant youth that are here today. So, immigrant youth are essential contributor to the workforce, bringing diversity, perspectives, and talent. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the opportunity for you all is to really think about, so in the experience that I've had working with immigrant youth, there are similarities, but they're not all immigrant youth are the same. They all have different things that contributes to who they are, how they look at the world, how the world impacts them. But sometimes there are also similarities around successes that they experience, the bonds that they make with different community members. But also there are similarities sometimes within the challenges that they face. So here are some challenges. There's legal status, right? And the legal status sometimes impact what kind of experience an immigrant youth might have. In the Bring It program, there were students that I worked with that had straight A's, applied for college, got into amazing schools, but couldn't get financial aid because of their legal status. I've known students that try working multiple jobs just to compete, and they had to drop out because the money that they were making wasn't substantial enough. Discrimination, biases, it could be based on their accent, it could be based on how they dress. By the way, when I moved to the States, we had like hundreds of plastic bags that people donated to us, and my mom was just trying to be polite by not saying no, we have enough plastic bags donation of clothes, used clothes. And a lot of the clothes, only if I knew that the trend was going to change eventually. So in 2000, nobody was wearing skinny jeans, right? So everybody was wearing Jinko, like really big, baggy. And we had a bunch of skinny jeans. So I was rocking skinny jeans, and my classmate like, this is definitely an immigrant. Who's this dude? So sometimes your appearance, right? Lack of network. There's a lot of folks that come alongside immigrant youth. Sometimes those folks don't also have the other network. They might view the students or the community in a limited way based on the needs that they have now versus the needs that they're gonna have in the future as they acclimate. The other one is financial constraint, and not all immigrants are the same. There are some immigrants that migrate that might have more financial capacity than others. But it's important to understand that some, depending on how they got here, financial constraint might be a roadblock. Super. The other thing, mental health. Mental health is such a big challenge sometimes that immigrant youth experience. And mental health in the immigrant community, depending on where folks are, there's a lot of stigma around it. So sometimes some of the challenges they might face might not be handled properly. I've had students that had major mental health breakdown, either while they were at the program or much later on in their life, because some of the trauma that they experienced in their life never got dealt with. So I think it's really important to understand that. Cultural adjustment. I'm going to tell you a quick story. So when I was in middle school, this kid, it was my birthday, and he was like, "Oh, Dale's gonna dance on his birthday suit," and everybody laughed, and I laughed too. But it took me like, I think 10 years later to figure out what it meant for someone, because I didn't know what it meant. Anyways. Limited access to information, cultural stereotypes, right? Sometimes if there's conflicts happening in the world, if there's a general narrative that's happening, that might also be associated to those immigrant groups. So it's really important for you to be aware of some of those challenges, how it might impact them. All right, now let's talk about the positive stuff. Immigrant youth are resilient and driven. Despite challenges they face in their life, they seek opportunities for growth and a better life. And that's rooted and grounded in who they are, either through their families and what their parents have passed on to them in terms of what it means to be in this country of hope, of possibility, of opportunities. And that's what drives them. Adaptability, they're able to adapt. They're resourceful. They're quick to adjust in a new environment, cultural changes, and that's kind of the MO of surviving, right? If you're not able to adjust and adapt, for a lot of them, depending on their pathway of how they got here, and they wouldn't have been able to get here with their families. So that's kind of, that's the drive, right? And when you think about your workforce, you want people that are adaptable, that are resilient, right? They're determined. They have a determination. Even if they have limited access to something, the dreams and the goals that they have, they're determined by it. And the only thing that can contribute to drive that is the realism of what they need in order to actually actualize that opportunity. And I've seen it with so many different youth that I've worked with. Cultural strength, they draw from their cultural heritage, tradition, values, which provide a sense of identity and resilient. Purposefully driven. So I wanted to give you this context because I think it's really important, because a lot of times in conferences like this, when you're given information, it's very like linear sometimes, and it's like, so when I present, I like to bring tangible things. So I hope through some of the examples that I shared that you're really beginning to think about how you can tap into the immigrant youth here in Maine. So I have about 7 minutes left, so I'm gonna ask some questions to you all. So when you think about your organization, your community, how can we create, right, as a group here in your appropriate environment, a meaningful opportunity for immigrant youth to contribute and grow within your organization? And for some of you, they might just need to know that you exist and what you do, right? So I'm gonna give you 2 minutes talking your round table. What are some opportunities? What are some opportunities that you see? I'll give you 2 minutes. All right, I gotta bring us back. I said this yesterday. Every time I do breakout groups, I always end up being the bad person because I have to call everyone back. But I want to respect time here. So I want to get some feedback. What are some stuff that came up on your table? What are some conversations? What are some opportunities that you see that's applicable, practical, or a starting point, or a curiosity, right? To say, hey, maybe we should evaluate this, or maybe we should explore this. I'm curious. I'm gonna go to every side of the room. So hopefully someone has something on. Oh, perfect. Someone has something. Someone has something.
Hi.
Hi.
Check.
I'm gonna give you my mic.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. What I was intrigued by with your presentation, and what I think is really possible here is I love the thought of starting earlier in education and just having companies think about, you know, one or two people in a particular role that you're having trouble filling with an organization, and then going out and applying that. Like, how do we teach children how to be aware that these roles exist, and then do some skill building over the course of time after school programs or things like that. I think that feels like a low cost of entry to really create that kind of a connection to community and to the jobs that are out there. And I think a lot of people are reevaluating how much we spend on college versus, you know, what you're getting when you get on the other side. You need to make that kind of an investment. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Another group. Oh, all the way in the back. I'm coming, I promise. Oh, no problem. It just buys me time to think about my other thought.
So I think this is more of like a next step, but I think it can be really beneficial is once you start, say you are starting something, as the last person, you know, mentioned, is giving youth then the opportunity to have leadership roles within that. So, you know, they have the lived experience. They know what some of these other students are going through, you know, and as they get older, you know, what are different levels of leadership, you know, and it could be from like leading small groups or helping plan activities through to, as they get older, okay, is there a way for them to internship with this organization as well and build more professional skills along with some of that?
Thank you. Yep.
I think one of the things for us as a city, because our young people are growing, we want them to fall in love with our city because they can look for a job anywhere they want to go. So we created an internship program that would allow these young people come to our city, and we just created another program that we share. We go to different industries to show them what is around us that you can fall in love. What can we do to empower you and mentor you to do that?
Thank you. Last one on this side. I want to make sure I'm giving this side of the room some love too. Come in. Me. I like your suit, by the way.
Thank you, Bill. This is Gisa from Catholic Charity. So I'm going to echo the first person who spoke. I think before to say about any opportunity, we need to think about connection. As immigrants, the first thing when you arrive in a new country, your first question is where I am. Who can serve me? Where to go? So I spoke on our table right here. I have a great connection with good Department of Education. I say I'm in a good table. So our people, when they came, the first thing we created a network. What resources we have in Maine? As Ben says, love the city, and then you will see the opportunity. Because the opportunity is not that to say America is the land of opportunity, but where is it? It's not knocking on your door. You need to seek for the opportunity. And we create a network how we can serve them and even to teach them, because being in a new environment, it's a kind of being a blackout situation. So the first thing we're doing is connection. And then all the resources we have in place, we share with them and can have a grow in a new country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So as I conclude my presentation, again, like what I said yesterday, we were talking about belonging, right? The difference between belonging and inclusion. And I hope that the conversation from these sessions continues on during lunch, during break time, and you all can start really thinking about tangible ways to engage and build processes and systems that reflects where you want to be and where you want to go. But I do think from an organizational standpoint, you should have a plan that reflects how do we cultivate our workforce from the beginning, right? And I think in my presentation today, I'm focusing on immigrant youth. I think there's plethora of opportunity there. The first thing, just to conclude, is relevance. You have to find what connects, what are they interested in? So the programs that I shared, those were volunteered programs. Nobody was, pressured and to be in it. Nobody was told to be, it was volunteered. We opened up the application, we talked about it, we educated them, but we also needed to make the connection in order to show the interest. And then the other thing is normalizing hard stuff, because sometimes in the education space, we run away from the hard stuff based on how we identify what type of students we're working with. In our work, what we've done is we normalize it. So the students know that, hey, it's going to be challenging, but as long as you commit, walk alongside them. And then the other side of it is exposure. Some of the videos I didn't share was we go to different local companies and they learn about the different things. They learn about the salaries, the opportunity, the different pathways. So for my conclusion for you today, when you think about immigrant youth here in Maine, you have a plethora of opportunity to think about how you cultivate your workforce by making an investment, having whatever version of what's possible that you can build those connections and create opportunity for this youth. So with that, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.